Just a little sidelight. I've sat down here front, just glanced through my sermon. My last few pages are missing. I printed it out this morning, and I knew something was wrong, but I didn't take the time to see it. Started printing it over. So I had a moment of panic, and I thought, my sermon tells me trust in God. So I said, okay, God, this is yours today. So I'm taking a deep breath and I'm trusting God. It was the year 1986. The CIA realized that there was a problem, a big problem. CIA spies who were working against the Soviet Union began disappearing at an alarming rate. They could come up with only 3 reasons. Number 1, the KGB had infiltrated the CIA communications. That was a possibility. Number 2, the KGB in Moscow had access to CIA documents or had placed a bug in some strategic place. Or the third option was that there was a mole within the CIA. Some of you may remember the story. So it was that a team was formed to figure out where the cases were compromised. And it took a while to gather this information and to look. And by 1991, the team decided to focus on finding a mole in the agency. So this team, this small elite team within the CIA, made a list of everyone who had access to the compromised cases. They had a list of 190 people. They began narrowing that down, and they weighted the number down by who had the best access to the information. And eventually it was narrowed down to 28 people. Next, the team voted for the 6 most likely candidates, and they weighted the votes. An agent, Rick Ames, came out on top of the combined and weighted list. After they began to do that, they had a financial expert on the team check out all of Ames' financial records. And simultaneously, while he was doing that, another expert analyzed Ames' activities for the last 7 years. And there was a pattern of correlation. Unexplained money deposited in Ames' account, according to the compromised files, to the tune of $2.5 million. In the spring of 1993, the FBI took over the case, and in February of 1994, the FBI had Ames's boss call him to come into the office before he was to take another trip to Russia and tell him about some new developments. They were afraid that he would disappear in Russia. And they called him, and the FBI were waiting around the corner from his house, and they arrested him on the spot. Our Bible story today is about the king of Syria who had a similar problem. Check it out in 2 Kings 6:8-23. It was probably Ben-Hadad, the second king of Syria. He was fighting with Israel almost constantly, and sometimes it was open conflict. Other times it was just small little border raids. And then it began to happen. Ben-Hadad would call his counselors together and they would plan this surprise attack on this Israelite village, or they would lay in wait along a strategic route to ambush the army. And they would come in by stealth, and to their surprise, either the Israelite army was waiting for them or they avoided the route where they were in their planning to ambush them. Then they would make plans for another surprise attack on another village, or another ambush for the Israelite army. And it would happen again. And Ben-Hadad, thought, well, it might be a coincidence, but then it happened again and again. Follow along with me the story as recorded in 2 Kings. Now the king of Syria was making war against Israel. And he consulted with his servants, saying, my camp will be in such and such a place. And the man of God sent to the king of Israel, saying, beware that you do not pass this place, for the Syrians are coming down there. Then the king of Israel sent someone to the place of which the man of God had told him. Thus he warned him. And he was watchful there, not just once or twice. It says, therefore the heart of the king of Syria was greatly troubled by this thing. And he called his servants and said to them, will you not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? You can imagine the frustration of the king. Something's wrong with this battle plan. We plan a surprise attack, the Israelite army is there. And it happens again and again. Or they don't go where we plan to ambush him, and so he, says, evidence points to a mole. There's a mole in my advisory board. So he calls his servants and generals together, and he barks. Who's the mole? Who's the double agent working for the king of Israel? Yeah, if you're a mole, you're not going to say, yeah, it's me. I'm the one. But, it's a life and death question, and the answer had better be pretty plausible for this group of guys. And after all of the, likelihood, heads will roll if something's not happening. And one after another says, it's not me, not me, not me, I'm loyal, echoes around the team. Finally, one of the servants pipes up. Excuse me, king. I don't believe any of us are moles. You see, O king, live forever, O king. There is this prophet, Elisha, who's in Israel. And that man has some incredible abilities, I believe, sir. That it's the prophet who's telling the king of Israel the very words you speak in your bedroom. How did he know that? Who told him? Do you think it might have been Naaman? Or someone influenced by Naaman's miracle? Or maybe even one of Naaman's servants? And one of his servants said, none, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words you speak in your bedroom. I wonder if he had been reading the words of King Solomon in Ecclesiastes 10:20. Furthermore, in your bedchamber do not curse a king, and in your sleeping rooms do not curse a rich man, for a bird of the heavens will carry the sound, and the winged creature will make the matter known. So the king of Syria said, go and see where he is, that I may send and get him. The king appears to be thoughtful. Okay, I've heard of that prophet Elisha. There may be something to this explanation. Yes, let's send some spies out to find where he's living. I want to send and get him. Now, if you're the king And all of this has been happening. Don't you think, doesn't the king think that God can protect Elisha too? But he sends his spies out, and they come back, and they report back, and they say, Elisha is in the city of Dothan. Surely he is in Dothan. And therefore the king of Syria, he sent horses and chariots and a great army there. And they came by night and surrounded the city. Strategy, it's got to be without delay. It's got to be reinforced. It's got to be surprising. It's actually laughable. Strategizing against God. God had sabotaged all of his previous efforts. Why would he believe that this time would lead to different results? But somehow he did. And I love God's sense of humor, don't you? Okay. You're going to do this? I'm going to play a little game with you, with the whole army, in fact. We're going to show them who's really in control around here. And by the way, it's not the Syrian army, and it's not King Ben-Hadad. And when the servant of the man of God arose early and went out, there was an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots, and his servant said to him, Alas, my master, what shall we do? Can you picture it? Elisha wakens up early to go about his duties for the day, and there, the whole army of Syria is surrounding the city of Dothan, horses and chariots and all. Elisha's servant panics. He sees calamity. He sees trouble. He sees defeat. Notice what he says. What shall we do? The proverbial we. I wonder what he thought he could do. Maybe he and Elisha could ask God to make them invisible and they could escape. That'd be good. But really, what could he and Elisha do against this whole army of people? I don't know any strategy to get us out of this playbook case. And I love Elisha's reply. So he answered, Do not fear. For those who are with us are more than those with them. I wonder if Elisha thought of the Psalm of David in chapter 20, verse 7. Some trust in chariots, and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. Do not fear. Repeat with me. Oh, you can do better than that. Yes, do not fear. How many times do we become afraid when circumstances are out of our control? Do not fear. I could do a whole sermon on just the phrase, do not fear, but I'll spare you. You know, God has 1,000 ways to provide. Repeat. You can do better than that. Yes, he has 1,000 ways to provide. He's not limited by our little ideas of how things can be done. And Elisha prayed, and he said, Lord, I pray, open his eyes. Open my servant's eyes that he may see. And then the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots, of fire all around Elisha. Wow. Were our eyes to be opened? What would we see? You know, we have a tendency to worry about all kinds of things. We worry and stress over lots of things. Probably 95% of the things that we worry about never happen. But if we could see the invisible, the holy angels who excel in strength, the holy angels who are servants of the Most High God, who do His bidding with gladness and delight, who are ministering spirits sent forth to minister. If God could open our eyes today, we could see holy angels here in this house of worship. We'd also see a great cosmic conflict repeated in our own church, in our world. Evil angels trying to distract us. Holy angels trying to help us grow and stay focused and worship God. The evil angels, you know, they come to church too, and they try to distract us with appealing to our critical nature. You know, the sermon's too long, someone's too restless, someone's not reverent enough, there's too much fluff. I just wish they would, whatever. And, you know, I wish they wouldn't talk about finances. You know the thoughts that come to your mind. How easy it is to find fault. But there are holy angels present too, who are speaking to our hearts, who are trying to get our attention. And while we may be critical, God may be blessing someone else in a powerful way about the very thing that we are being critical about. Oh, if we came to worship and we reframe those critical thoughts to, what is God teaching me through this experience? Help me to see you, God. Help me to value the person who irritates me or the things that bother me. Help me to have your eyes in your heart. So when the Syrian army came down to him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike this people, I pray, with blindness." Doesn't Elisha have a sense of humor? "Strike this people, I pray, with blindness." And he struck them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. The Hebrew word used here for blindness is only used one other place in the Old Testament, and that is Psalm 19, verse 11, where the Sodomites were struck with blindness when they tried to enter Lot's home. You know, we don't know if it was total physical blindness or a state in which they were supernaturally unable to see things as they actually were. But I just love God's sense of humor. They've come for Elisha. And Elisha greets them with this special message. "This is not the way, nor is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man you seek." And he led them to Samaria. Now you know where Samaria is, right? It's the capital of the it's the capital of Israel, the 10 northern tribes. You see, you really aren't where you need to be, but if you follow me, I'll take you to see the man that you are really seeking. It's, you know, only a 10-mile jaunt to the capital of Israel. Never mind that you've hit it hard all night to be here in Dothan at the crack of dawn to get me. So you can imagine, let's say that they're in really good physical shape, and that 4 hours later or more, exhausted, they enter the gates of Samaria, and they march up to the palace of the king. And so it was when they came to Samaria that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw that they were inside Samaria. What an eye-opening experience. You are at the enemy's capital and at the mercy of the king. Would you be feeling a little bit nervous? What happens next? Slaughter? Revenge? The king of Israel, on the other hand, he's astounded at this good fortune. You know, I've got the whole army dumped in my lap, and he gets excited. This is just incredible. My enemy is right here. My army surrounded him. There's no possible way for escape. And when the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, my father, shall I kill them? Shall I kill them? You know, he gets all excited about this. And you can imagine Elisha's response. King, come on, get it. This is God doing this. Really? You want to kill them? No. No, you're missing the point. They're prisoners of war now. And as such, we need to treat them as guests. As guests? But he answered, you shall not kill them. Would you kill those whom you've taken captive with your sword and your bow? Set food and water before them that they may eat and drink and go to their master. Then it says, the king of Israel prepared a great feast for them. And after they ate and drank, he sent them away, and they went to their masters, so the bands of Syrian raiders came no more into the land of Israel, at least for a short time. What an incredible lesson. No, treat them as honored guests. Give them a banquet that they will remember all their lives. Show them courtesy and respect. You know, there's a law of the desert that says, a man who accepts food in a tent becomes a friend and must be protected. And then he sends the enemy home, well fed, humbled, and very grateful for sparing their lives. So let's recap the lessons we've learned from this story today. Number one, we need to trust God. You know, if Psalm 20 verse 7 were to be rewritten today, some trust in guns and some in tanks and some in stockpiling food. But I trust in the Lord my God. You know, the Lord is our defense. He is our deliverer. Number two, do not fear. You know, when God is for us, who can be against us? We are afraid of too many things. Our trust in God needs to grow and grow. And we need to just lean on Him in those times where we don't know what's going on. For you see, God has 1,000 ways to provide for us. And the Bible is replete of stories of God's ways that are beyond our comprehension, parting the Red Sea, providing manna, oil that doesn't run out, feeding the 5,000 and the 4,000. God has ways of providing that we cannot even begin to guess or think. Another lesson, love your enemies. What a powerful story on how to treat those who are enemies. You know, give them a banquet. They're here to destroy you. Treat them nicely. Apply the platinum rule. Do more for them than they would do for you. And then God has this invisible army to protect us. It's at His command. I love the story from a couple of weeks ago. 32 people were praying for those missionaries whose car was trapped. And the villager around them, the enemy, saw 32 soldiers guarding them. Was it 16? Okay, sorry, up the numbers. There may have been more. They only saw 16. 16 that were guarding them. 16. You know, I mean, it's powerful. Our God has an invisible army that we know nothing about or very little about. That God is willing to be there to protect us, to keep us, to guide us, to watch over us, to help us in our times of need. It's an interesting story how eyes are opened. Elisha's servant, and he sees this. And the enemy's eyes are blinded. And then the eyes are opened again to see what mercy and grace is about. One of the things that's so amazing about this story is as you look at where the history of the children of Israel are, the nation of Israel during this time, are they in apostasy or are they in a great place with God? For the most part, you know, Elisha has some that he's building up, but, you know, they are very, very close to apostasy. There are many things that are going wrong in the kingdom, and yet God gives them this window, this picture, this illustration, this living illustration that He is still there and that He is still in control and that He is still willing to take care of them if they would just trust Him. My friends, you and I, we are given the opportunity to have our eyes opened, to see that there is an invisible army. When we worry, when we fret, when we are anxious, God has ways of opening doors, of delivering us, of setting us free from whatever it is that we feel like we're being enclosed about by. So, I want you to take courage. God's invisible army is there for you and for me. May we see with His eyes. Let's pray. Father in heaven, open our eyes that we may trust You more, in the difficult and trying circumstances. May we fix our eyes on your word, on your promises, and claim them, living in faith and trust. In Jesus' name, amen.